kayıt alıyoruz sunumu. Merhabalar, ben Admittance Education'dan Yeşim Erez. Beraberimde ekibimizden diğerleri de var. Can Hoca, Hande Hoca, Serap Hanım'ı da gördüm. E, Aslında bugün çok heyecanlı bir okazyon için hep bir araya geldik. Okullar başlamadan önce Purdue Üniversitesi bize kendileriyle ve mühendislik programlarıyla ilgili çok enteresan bir sunum yapacaklar. Onun için iyi ki katıldınız, iyi ki kaçırmıyorsunuz. With that brief intro, I would like to kick it over to Danik Tori, please. And we are so appreciative you and Ms. Wang are able to join us today. So we're all ears, and please take it away.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for introducing us and having us today. And thank you to all who have joined us on this Thursday afternoon to learn a little bit more about Purdue University. My name's Danik, and I'm an admissions representative at Purdue. I'm joined with a colleague, Yujen Wang, you'll also see on your screen. And Yujen, if you want to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name's Sujin Won. I'm part of Danik's International Undergraduate Admissions team here at Purdue University. Great to be here today. It's my year 5 at Purdue, so I think I'll be able to answer any questions you might have about Purdue. And I'll be kind of in the background to monitor the chat. So feel free to put your questions in the chat if you have any.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen, for being here. So as Jen said, I'll primarily be doing the presentation, but if any questions come up throughout the presentation, check the chat and Eugen will be able to put that. Eugen will also be putting some of the links of the things I'm talking about. So we can't do everything in this presentation, but there'll be some links and resources that you can click on and go back to later or check out later during the presentation.
Is it okay if I quickly add that if they wish to ask questions in Turkish, that's entirely fine. We will translate for you.
Yep, you can do that. All right, I'm going to just give me a few seconds here just to make sure I can start the presentation. Sorry, I'm just getting the screen shared real quick. Should have already worked. All right. Good. So I already mentioned Purdue University. Today's presentation is going to be focused on studying engineering and preparing to apply to engineering programs. So the first part of the presentation, well, first I'm going to show a quick video that's a good introduction to Purdue, and then I will explain what to expect today during our presentation.
When we talk about our best moments, they include humanity's first steps on the moon, alongside stories about the steps we're taking right now. At one of our country's greatest institutions, Purdue University, a family of students and professors who are in this together, persistently pursuing, relentlessly rethinking, the next game changers, difference makers, ceiling breakers, innovators, Boilermakers.
So when I see the smile across your face and the sunrise lights up another day,
and we will never stop. We'll keep going because discovery is in our DNA. Our greatest adventures are yet to come, and they include you and everything we will experience together when you take your next giant leap.
So you can see that video may be a few years old now, but it's still a great one. It's a great introduction to Purdue, and it gives you a good, I guess, overview of Purdue. And I hope that video potentially even gets you excited about considering Purdue University for applications. As I mentioned earlier, today's presentation, I'm going to focus a little bit more on engineering and STEM. But even if you're not interested in engineering and STEM programs, or you're just interested in Purdue for other programs, I do touch a lot on Purdue University as well. And a lot of the concepts I'll be explaining, even preparing for STEM programs, the concepts apply to any program that you'll be applying to, either at Purdue or at other colleges and universities in the United States. But this first part, these first few slides, is going to focus a little bit more on engineering. We'll transition then into a little bit more specific about Purdue, then a little bit about Purdue's engineering program, and then a little bit about the application process. If there are any questions throughout this, please put them in the chat. In English or Turkish is completely fine. And Yasmin and the Admittance Education team is there, as well as Eugen Wong from Purdue, to help answer any of those questions that you have. There may be some time at the end to do some live Q&A with Eugen and I as well. So why you want to study STEM in the United States? There's a few, probably a long list of reasons, but these are some of the main ones that we've come up with, is that the American style of education really is at the forefront of innovation. There's so many connections with companies and the large engineering firms and companies that recruit our students, of course, are based in the United States. And that comes along with that return on investment. So certainly studying in the United States is not cheap. It is an investment in your future and in your education. Certainly, there are some ways to make your education more affordable, and there are of a wide variety of options. But certainly, we do like to think there is a great return on investment, especially in STEM programs. Average salaries out of our engineering program are currently about $75,000 US annually upon completion of the degree. So with about a 90, right around a 90% plus placement rate. So that's one thing, although it's, certainly an investment over the lifetime of your career. We hope to make that worth it. There's a lot of flexibilities in the United States in your studies. So what that means is, I guess, a variety of different things, in that if you want to study engineering, you're not only limited to studying engineering in the US. If you still have an interest in, say, theater, and you also want to study theater or business, it's very rare for our engineering students to only be studying one thing. Many of them have a computer science minor or a entrepreneurship certificate or a second major in the liberal arts. And that's very possible in the US, not only at Purdue, just in general. There's a lot of flexibility. The other thing with that flexibility, perhaps you get to the United States in your program and you realize that engineering is not the best fit for me as a student, and you want to transition into another program, you can fairly easily do that and still be on a 4-year plan of study, depending on when you switch. So a lot of our students may start in engineering, they may end and get their degree in business. So there is a lot of flexibility, and you're not only stuck studying one type of engineering or one thing. And of course, there's a great need for STEM majors and engineers in our world as well. What is engineering? So you may have been told, oh, you're good at math and science, you should be an engineer. But here are just some quick textbook definitions of what engineering actually is. And a lot of students, I think it's very common that math and science is a part of engineering. But just these definitions here, the branch of science engineering concerned with the design, building, engineering, engines, machines, and structures. I really like this one, the application of creativity and teamwork using math and science principles to solve problems. So at the core, engineering really is using those math and science and the theory of math and science to solve problems. But a lot of people don't really think of the creativity part or the teamwork part. Our students in our engineering program, they're working on teams on day one. So also be thinking teamwork, creativity, those skills as well. And those are all integrated into Purdue's engineering program. That's a part of being an engineer as well. And of course, creating things that will benefit society. In the United States, it's a little bit confusing. And when you look at the list of majors at Purdue and maybe some other universities, you'll see engineering, and then you'll also see engineering technology. So for example, you may see mechanical engineering, and then there's another program called mechanical engineering technology. And it's a common question and very confusing. What is it? What's the difference? So here on your screen is a graph of think of the spectrum of engineering, from distribution and sales all the way to the theoretical research. That's a whole spectrum. There's different approaches to education. There's different careers and opportunities all along that spectrum. And they do overlap, as you can see there as well. So long story short, I guess a good explanation of this would be, I often maybe have students ask me that, tell me they're interested in robotics. And you can study robotics in a wide variety of ways. But my question then would be, what do you want to do with robots? Do you want to be the person who uses the math and science and the theory to create new robots to maybe solve a problem? And you're actually, using all your math and science skills to create that? Or are you the person who likes to fix the robot? You like to program the robot. You're maybe using the robot on the production lines. You're not using that math and science and all of those skills to create the robot, but you're still very involved with robotics. So depending on how you answer that question, I would recommend to you our mechanical engineering major, or perhaps our robotics or mechatronics engineering and technology major. So as you can see, depending on your skills, one may not be better than the other, depending on what fits your skill set. We have students all the time who start in engineering, but engineering technology is a better fit. And vice versa, some students start in engineering technology, but they really do have that strong math and science desire, and they would prefer to be in engineering. They switch. So here's just some side-by-side comparison. Engineering is a little more theoretical, of course, math and science. Engineering technology, more hands-on, applied, practical. Engineering, you're using math and science to solve problems. And engineering technology, you're just developing those solutions, not really, maybe solving problems, but not using the math and science behind it. Creating innovation versus implementing innovation, and then adapting to change and maintaining technological advancements. So I hope that makes sense and helping you understand the differences in those two programs. Purdue has both programs, and both programs can lead to engineering careers. There are different approaches to education, and engineering technology can lead in some cases to engineering jobs and careers as well. So it's really depending on the student, which one may be the best fit. This is pretty basic here about how to prepare for engineering programs in the US. These are some of the basics and requirements that we look here at Purdue. Most of our Turkish students are coming from the national Turkish curriculum, which we're very familiar with, and that's completely fine. And Purdue, we don't have preference of which curriculum a student does, whether that's the IB curriculum, Turkish, or both, or another style curriculum. We want the students to do well in whichever curriculum they choose. So not that one's better than the other, but we want you to do well in whichever you're a part of. 4 years of mathematics. Of course, high school in the United States is 4 years, so that's why everything here is looking at 4 years. But at least the main thing we want to have strong math skills for preparation engineering. So if a student can take calculus in high school, we really are looking for students to be prepared to take calculus their first semester of university. Science, typically 3 to 4 years. Of course, international curriculum, you're probably going to exceed these requirements, but taking chemistry and physics, and we'll be looking specifically to make sure you've done well in physics and chemistry courses as well. English 4 years, 3 years of social studies. That's going to be the history, geography, economics, and then 2 worlds of foreign language. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'm familiar with the Turkish education system, and I know you probably have this most of our international students exceed these minimum expectations. Other things you'll know in the United States, we're looking at holistic admissions. And what that means is we consider everything that's a part of the application. We're looking at your academics and your non-academics. We're going to be looking at all of these things. So these are all the things that you can kind of help prepare as you're looking to apply to US engineering programs. And not only engineering programs, this can apply to any program in the US. So, but if you are looking at any STEM program, we're looking at your academic grades, specifically in math and science, especially if you're applying to a STEM-focused program. We need to know that you're academically prepared and you're ready for a rigorous math and science curriculum. We also are going to be looking for strong SAT or ACT results. I know that can be a little bit confusing because not all universities require the SAT or ACT anymore, and many universities are either flexible or optional. At Purdue specifically, we do expect the submission of SAT or ACT score. So although it's not required, preference is given to those who do submit SAT or ACT results. So we do strongly recommend that, especially if you're applying to Purdue, and that can vary from each university. For international students whose native language is not English, we're going to be looking for a strong proof of English proficiency. So typically that's going to be submitted through the IELTS, the TOEFL, or the Duolingo English test. We need to know that you have those English skills to be successful in a US university. That's also going to strengthen your application if you have those strong results as well. Even if you perhaps go to a school where English is the primary language already, we still typically recommend taking or submitting those English proficiency test results because typically those students have stronger results, which can strengthen that application as well. Interview skills, we want students to have good interview skills. At Purdue specifically, we don't require interviews and we actually don't even offer interviews, but some universities do. So if you're looking to apply to a wide variety of programs and competitive programs, they may offer an interview. So making sure that you are ready and prepared to answer any questions in that interview. Letters of recommendation at Purdue, it is strongly encouraged. Most students will submit up to 2 letters of recommendation, typically from a high school counselor or from a high school teacher. We have no preference in who it's coming from. Some programs may say specifically they need a letter from a science teacher or a counselor, but at Purdue we have no preference, and it's not a requirement. Everything I've mentioned so far is primarily academic, but we also want to get to know you outside of academics, and that can come across in your essay. So we want a well-written essay, and we want to get to know you outside of the classroom and outside of your academics. So your essay really can be on any topic. Typically, it's not related to your academics, although it can be, and each university may have a different essay prompt too. So make sure you're answering the question and you're making it interesting, and we get to know more about you as a student. Extracurricular activities, I know this can be very confusing, especially for those of you and from international environments. But in the United States, we also look beyond your academics, and we want to know what you've been involved with in the classroom or outside of the classroom. So think of those things you've been involved with in your high school community, your high school, whether that's clubs, organizations, service, your family, all of those things. We want any work experience, internship experience. We want to know all of that. I often get asked, well, what specifically, if I'm studying engineering, what specifically are you looking for? And there's no set activity we're looking for. We just want to know that you've been involved. We want to look to the extent that you've been involved. Sometimes leadership skills we look at in that part, the depth that you've been involved. So make sure and we typically look at quality over quantity in those extracurricular activities as well. So you don't need a long list of 10 things, but if you're involved with 3 to 4 things very heavily, please indicate that on your application. And then also be able to express your interest in the program. We'll ask you why you're interested in the program or why do you want to study engineering. Make sure you've thought about that and are able to give an informed answer of why you want to study and then why you're applying to the university that you're applying to. And then last slide here on the engineering front is just skills needed to succeed as an engineer in the United States and in our program. So being able to identify problems and problem solving, design, innovation, ethics, global perspective, adaptive change, team dynamics, communication. I mentioned the team thing already. All of these things on the screen, you don't need to have those skills now. And if you already have some of them, that's great. It's going to help you. But this is all built into our curriculum at Purdue. So if you come to Purdue for engineering, these are some of the things and skills we'll be teaching you to be a successful engineer in your career. So that was the engineering section of the presentation. I hope that was helpful. Hopefully maybe some of that you already knew or confirms you're on the right track for preparing to apply to engineering programs in the US. I'm going to transition to a little bit now and talk just about Purdue University in general. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the engineering program we have at Purdue as well. You can see some pictures here on your screen. At Purdue, we experience all 4 seasons. So you can see that picture there with snow on the ground, the flowers, the leaves that change colors. We're going into our fall season right now. Average temperatures in the summer typically going to be 25 to 30 Celsius. And in the winter, average is going to be usually around 0 Celsius, give or take, depending on the year and season. At Purdue, we have 2 locations. So the Purdue University flagship campus consists of West Lafayette and Purdue in Indianapolis. So West Lafayette's going to be that traditional U.S. College campus, what you think of, what you see in the movies of that typical U.S. college experience, that college town, that's going to be West Lafayette. Indianapolis is our urban campus. So if you want to be a part of a large city, it still has a college campus and has a college community, but with a lot of opportunities for internships and jobs without moving or relocating, you may be interested in Indianapolis. So both campuses offer engineering. Indianapolis is more STEM focused, and they do offer 5 engineering programs, whereas in West Lafayette, we offer 17 engineering programs. So you can see a list of all of those on the website. And if you're interested in being involved in more of an urban environment in a city, Indianapolis is a great fit for you. The curriculum is the same and the degree is the same for both locations. So you're getting both locations, everything I'm talking about in this application or in this about Purdue's engineering program in just a little bit is going to be the same for both locations. And then West Lafayette, on the other hand, is going to be that college town. So it's going to be about 180,000 people in the local area for West Lafayette. And we're about 2 hours south of Chicago and 1 hour north of the city of Indianapolis. So there is only a 1 hour drive or a commute in between Indianapolis and West Lafayette. There are also shuttles that go between the both locations. So students in Indianapolis that need to get to West Lafayette or students in West Lafayette that need to get to Indianapolis, there are 6 shuttles daily to both locations, between the locations. And this is a picture of the West Lafayette location. So you saw the pictures of Indianapolis, of the large buildings, being a larger city, which is a great fit for a lot of students. And then you see this picture of West Lafayette, a part of our campus here, which is more of that traditional U.S. college campus. Fun fact is that Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, is actually a Purdue alumnus, and that's really building the culture of Purdue University. And a lot of the buildings you see on our screen are our engineering buildings, including the Neil Armstrong Hall of Engineering. A little bit about Purdue. We're a large university, so we have over 50,000 students currently enrolled at Purdue. Purdue is a public university. So what that means is our primary purpose is to educate the residents of the state of Indiana. However, Purdue is very much a global university in that we have all 50 US states represented, as well as about 120 countries on our campus. So we're very global in the fact that we are very international. Speaking of being international, we are in the top 10 for international student enrollment in the United States. So we currently have over 9,000 international students on our campus and a little under 4,000 undergraduate international students on our campus. So very proud of that. We certainly do have a good Turkish student population. We have about 115 Turkish students currently enrolled at Purdue. And that's a mix of graduate, actually it's split half and half. A little over 50 of those students are undergraduate students and about 50 of those students are Turkish graduate students. So we have an active Turkish student association and they are a really great group of students. And with that, I'm going to transition, show this quick video.
Purdue has an unrivaled energy. You can feel it the moment you step on campus with the students that call this special place home.
You can feel it at our first-year orientation program when you join fellow new students and jump the tracks into college life. You can feel it at Ross 8 Stadium, where the Boilermaker Special rumbles under your feet, and the All-American Marching Band creates an electric atmosphere you'll remember forever. Or at Mackey Arena, which is known for being one of the best atmospheres in college basketball. You can feel it walking through the Union, where you can settle in at a coffee shop to study with your friends.
Purdue's a place you can find your people, lifelong friends, mentors, and support systems. Whether you choose to live in a residence hall, a Greek community, or somewhere else, you'll make new friends and find your community. We have 5 cultural centers on campus: the Asian American and Asian Resource and Cultural Center, the Black Cultural Center, the Latino Cultural Center, the Native American Educational and Cultural Center, and our award-winning LGBTQ Center, which has a 5-star rating from Campus Pride. And no matter what group you identify the most with, Boilermakers of all kinds have been enjoying the same time-honored traditions for generations. Go sledding down Slater Hill, run through the fountains, ride the Boilermaker Special on Free Ride Friday, and you could even try rock climbing at the Co-Ride, or an intramural sport like ultimate frisbee or volleyball.
Purdue is the perfect starting point to begin exploring the world, discovering new things, and thinking bigger than you ever have before.
Here, you can become whoever you want. We have over 400 study abroad programs to choose from, 1,000+ student clubs and organizations, undergraduate research opportunities, mentorship programs, internship connections. But the best thing about Purdue is that we always take the next step together.
Always.
Always together. Always taking our next giant leap together.
All right, I hope that was helpful to learn a little bit more about Purdue and allowed you to see some of what campus looks like as well. Transition now, we're going to talk a little bit about other things that Purdue has to offer other than engineering. And Purdue has over 200 majors. So certainly we are well known for engineering and the STEM fields. We are a STEM focused university, but we have incredible programs outside of the STEM, traditional STEM programs as well. So we have a top ranked hospitality and tourism management program. Our College of Pharmacy is in the top 10 in the United States. Our College of Agriculture is in the top 10 in the United States. Business is in the top 30. So there's a lot of different programs that Purdue does really, really well outside of engineering. And the other great thing too is if you are interested in STEM and engineering, you can also study other things outside of engineering as well. So that's another great thing that we offer a wide variety. On the application, when you apply to Purdue, when you apply at Purdue, you apply directly into a major or directly into a program. So how that works is on the application, you can select your first choice major and an alternate choice major. So you can see there on the screen, you can list your first choice, or you can select 2 choices. Now, one thing to note, if you're interested in engineering specifically, we consider all engineering applications the same, regardless if you're interested in civil engineering or mechanical engineering. We consider them all the same. So it's kind of foolish to list mechanical engineering as your first choice and computer engineering as your second choice, because we consider them the same. If you're not admissible to one, then you're not going to be admissible to the second one. So that's one thing to know. In the West Lafayette location specifically, all students start out in what's called first year engineering. So you can indicate if you're interested in astronautical and aeronautical engineering, but you'll be considered for first year engineering. That first year of the program, speaking of the flexibility in your studies, you don't need to know whether you want to do mechanical or civil or nuclear or materials engineering your first year. You can have an idea, but that first year of our program, that's when you figure that out. So you will start in a first year engineering program, and then at the end of the year is when you'll indicate which major you want to go into. So that's for West Lafayette. If you're going to Indianapolis, since we only have 5 engineering programs there, you do indicate on the application which one you want to go into, and you'll be admitted directly to whichever one you would like on the application, but the curriculum is the same for both locations. Back to this. So here are all of the majors that we have at Purdue are within these colleges and schools. So I'm not going to go through all of them. Jen, if you could put in the chat the link to a list of all of the majors Purdue offers, that will be really helpful, because with over 200 programs, we can't fit them all on one slide, and you can go there to learn and see all the programs and all of the specific engineering programs. A few things I'd like to, and I will later in this presentation, I talk about other programs that are similar to engineering. So if you're interested in STEM or engineering, we have some other great programs you might be interested in. One thing I'm going to point out is exploratory studies. That's our program for undecided students. Or if you know you're interested in, say, business, but you're just not quite sure what you want to do, or if you're interested in 5 or 6 different things, good thing to start in exploratory studies. Another thing to point out is Polytechnic Institute. So earlier in this presentation, I talked about those engineering technology programs. Those are all in the Polytechnic Institute. And the Polytechnic Institute is just another one of the colleges at Purdue. They offer 4-year bachelor's degrees. So I know the word Polytechnic has different meanings in different parts of the world, but in the United States, those are all 4-year bachelor degree programs. That's it for this. Oh, I was going to mention that at Purdue, computer science. So some of you may be interested in computer science as well. Those programs, computer science in the US, sometimes it's with engineering, sometimes it's with science. At Purdue, our program is in the College of Science. If you're looking for computer science, it's going to be in the College of Science. If you're looking for computer engineering, it's going to be in the College of Engineering. So I'm going to transition a little bit about the engineering program in the United States, or at Purdue specifically. So the engineering program that is number 9. We're in the top 10 for engineering in the US. That's something we're very proud of. So that's something on a few of our rankings. Purdue is very diverse in a number of international students. Women in engineering is also something that we're very proud of, that to be graduated, the second highest number of bachelor's degrees awarded to women in engineering. That's something that Purdue is very proud of, as well as focusing on diversity in those cultural centers. These are the engineering majors that are offered at Purdue. So there's the list of all 18, I believe it's 18 different engineering programs. So again, as I mentioned, that first year, you will be studying just general engineering. That first year is really designed to help you start thinking like an engineer, and then you transition to whichever one you would like. Not only 5 of these are offered in Indianapolis, and one I want to point out is motorsports engineering. That's only offered at the Indianapolis location, and it's also the only accredited motorsports engineering program in the United States. So if that's an area of interest, a unique program that we offer there in Indianapolis. As I talked a little bit about that first year engineering program, that first year is the same for all engineering students, regardless of which engineering you want to go into. And it really allows our students to start thinking like an engineer. They work in small groups of 4 students. You can see there, that's actually a picture of our first year engineering classroom, where students have a small group that they work in every single class of 4 students. They also are going to work on community service. There's different routes and different ways for students to go through our first year engineering program. But they're really going to be working on some of those skills that I mentioned. So working on teamwork, team building, working on thinking like an engineer, making sure you have all of those basic classes to help prepare you. If you're not good at calculus or science or chemistry or physics, it's better to learn that your first year, so then you can know if it's a good major or a good fit for you to transition into the second year. I also talked about a lot about the engineering technology earlier. So this is a list of all of the engineering technology programs we have. So again, these are going to be those more practical, less math and science heavy. Students still have to take math and science classes, but they're not going to have to take, say, Calculus 3 or Intro to Thermodynamics, because they don't need those to have that in-depth of skills to complete these majors. And I really want to talk about this. So these are other related majors. So perhaps you may think you're interested in engineering, but you're just not quite sure, or you want something that's STEM. But these are some other great programs we offer at Purdue that are STEM focused. Not going to talk about all of them, but a few of them I think are unique. One of them is a few of them are in our School of Business. So Purdue School of Business actually has some STEM designated programs in it. One of those being the business analytics and information management and the supply chain and operations management. Those are amazing programs that you may be interested in a business degree. Another one is the integrated business and engineering. That's going to be a business degree, but also have engineering. So it's about 40% engineering, about 60% business, and it has an option to stay an additional up to 2 semesters to also receive an industrial engineering dual major. And so those are just some other amazing options. We often find students looking at our list of majors having 4 or 5 things they might be interested in. That's completely fine. Lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about the admissions process for Purdue. Purdue's application process is very similar to other colleges and universities, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I will mention a few of the things that are specific to Purdue. Purdue only uses the common application, so that's the only way you can apply to Purdue is through the common application. And when you apply, we're going to ask you if you want the Indianapolis location or the West Lafayette location. And when you look at the list of the majors, you can see which majors are at which location. We'll also ask you why you're applying to Purdue and why you're applying to the major that you chose. So again, being able to express that and let us know exactly why you're applying to Purdue and why you're applying to the major is something that's a part of that application. It's not a full essay, but at least a solid 1 to 2 paragraphs is helpful for us. So we'll be prepared to answer those questions if you're applying to Purdue. You're also going to need to report your grades to us, your English proficiency, as well as your SAT or ACT scores when you submit that application. The essay is just that common application essay. So whatever you write for your common application, you'll also submit to Purdue as well. And there's a $60 application fee when you're submitting the application to Purdue as well. So what are we looking for? We're going to be looking for your we'll be looking at your academics. So we've already talked about that. We'll be looking at your test scores, your academics, but we're also going to be looking at your non-academics as well. And I talked about that earlier too, that we'll be looking at your extracurricular activities, your major, your recommendation letters, all of that. So I feel like this slide, I've already talked about much of that in that holistic admissions process. Another thing is deadlines. I don't believe I have it on this presentation, but we have an early action deadline model at Purdue. So November 1st is our application and deadline. We don't have an ED or early decision. You must apply early. And then if you are admitted, none of our decisions are binding. You have until May 1st to accept your offer. And then lastly, the estimated cost. That's important on the screen. You may be wondering, well, what scholarships does Purdue have or how much does it cost? So you can see that on your screen now. Non-resident would be if you're a U.S. citizen and you don't reside in the state of Indiana. So if you're residing in Turkey and you're a U.S. citizen, or the student is a U.S. citizen rather, they would be classified as a non-resident. And then if the student requires a visa to enroll at Purdue, so not a U.S. citizen, you would classify as an international applicant. So our total cost typically is going to be around 45, maybe up to 50,000 US dollars per year. And that's going to be the total cost for everything, including your housing, meals, and that. Purdue does not offer any scholarships or financial aid to international students. So keep that in mind. We're very transparent about that. And it's just the reality that Purdue's tuition has been frozen since 2012. So that's very rare for colleges and universities in the United States, that these rates you're seeing on your screen right now have been the same for over 10 years. So that's something Purdue's very proud of. Purdue does tend to have tuition that's lower than other colleges and universities with a similar reputation and ranking. So although other universities may offer maybe a $25,000 scholarship, well, and their tuition may be $75,000, well, after that scholarship, the total cost may be still very comparable to Purdue. So I always recommend our students and families to consider total cost as they're considering Purdue. So just make sure that you're doing that when you're making those financial decisions. But main thing I want students to be aware of is that we do not expect a scholarship if they are admitted to Purdue University. Then lastly, we'll be thinking of those questions. I see there's a lot in the chat there, so we'll transition to questions, but certainly check out our website, explore more information. If you are interested in learning more, definitely check out our website to learn more about Purdue University. With that, I believe we can transition into answering some questions.
I will say I've been busy in
I
chat.
can tell, I can see, I cannot read the chat right now, but I
Yeah.
will right now, and I can see that there's some 50 unread messages there. So I'm sure there's lots of questions. But Eugen, is there a common theme or certain questions that are coming up?
Yeah, so financial aid scholarships definitely is a big one. I think you just touched on that. We
Yep.
like to be pretty transparent that we don't offer any merit-based scholarship for international students,
Correct.
especially during the application process. I did mention to a few people that direct message me, we do have what we call departmental scholarship or supplemental scholarship. Oftentimes, those are either coming from the department or that specific college you're enrolled in. After students being at Purdue start having a Purdue GPA, oftentimes there are going to be some smaller departmental scholarship they can apply to. I would say those range probably from a few hundred, sometimes up to a few thousand. So you can't really expect that to cover your tuitions. But those scholarship money definitely can help a little bit with your maybe your living expense or use it as a credit towards your tuition a little bit.
Good.
Yes.
Chime in to just contextualize that for the Turkish parents who may
Yeah,
not
of
look
course.
at tuition in, I'll say this in English and then in Turkish. So the $29,000, $30,000, $31,000, that was presented. If you look at other universities, you will notice in the private institutions, like around 60 right now is I believe the going rate. So diğer okullara bakma fırsatınız olmadıysa evet 30 gibi bir okul masrafı gösterdiler. Fakat onun 2 katı olduğunu özel okullarda bilmeniz çok önemli. Thank you. Sorry.
Yes. And just to follow up, we do have a few people says, oh, I'm a US citizen or I have green card. So if that's the case, if you apply by November 1st, you will be automatically considered for the merit-based scholarship. It is extremely competitive. Less than 15% of incoming students actually receive a merit-based scholarship from Purdue. But you can also reach out to our financial aid office because of your status. You are potentially eligible for financial aid or student loans. You just have to talk to financial aid to see what your options are because it might be a little bit limited because you are not resident in the US. I don't know, Danik, anything to add on that? And
No, I would say the same thing. I would just stress that even if you are a US citizen, that the scholarships are very limited. Even for US citizens, only about 15% again receive those. So that would be the main thing. The other thing I think we already touched on in the chat there, that the process is the same. The application process is the same for both, whether you're a domestic US citizen or international and needing a visa to go to the US. The process is more or less the same. The two main differences is going to be English proficiency. So if you're a US citizen, we don't require that English proficiency. If you are international, of course, we do need that for the visa process.
yes. I feel like another question that comes up is like GPA and test score requirement. I feel like Danik talked about holistic review. So Purdue doesn't have a GPA SAT requirement. It's what we tell our student. But if you're interested, I did put our freshman class profile in the chat. I can put the link there again. For engineering, the mid-range of SAT, I think it's 1430. Let me just pull that
I would
up.
say it's a 1470
70,
probably for engineering.
okay.
1450, 1470 for engineering.
So the
is
range
what would
is
be the
about
average.
the range is about 1400 to 1530. That's the mid 50%. The GPA is between a 3.88 to 4. ACT is between 31 to 34. So as you can tell, the range is pretty high, but we definitely admit student have lower test scores, lower GPA, and we deny student with even higher GPA and higher test scores.
Yep.
I think that all goes back to the holistic review. We really look at the applicants as a whole to determine whether a student is a good fit for the program and is a good fit for Purdue.
There's a few good questions coming in here. IB credits is a good question.
I'm gonna
Eugen.
send it. Yes, I will
Yep.
send the link in
Yep,
there.
we'll put the link there, but the answer is yes, we do offer IB credits for engineering and all majors, regardless of the major. Our process is the same regardless for IB, but typically that's going to be a 5 or better on any IB exam. So on your IB final exam, if you get a 5 or better, SL or HL, well, you'll get some credit. HL is preferred because the credit will be worth a little bit more for HL, but you'll work with an advisor to determine how you'll apply that credit.
There's one about housing. Yes, we do allow student apply for 4 years. I think
years.
yeah.
Yep. So all 4 years. So as long as students meet the deadline, at Purdue, we allow housing all 4 years, which is, I think, rare for large universities. We also don't require our students to live on campus at any point. So about over 95% of our first year students do live on campus. And then students, really, it's up to them if they want to stay on campus or off campus. There is some deadlines they need to meet if they want to stay on campus. Is it harder to get acceptance to engineering programs or engineering technology? It's a mix. I would say engineering is more popular. We receive way more in applications for engineering than we do for engineering technology. So that's one thing. The skills and things we're looking for are going to be different. Again, engineering technology, you still need to have good math and test scores, but maybe not to the higher level than as you do for engineering. So the acceptance rate may be a little bit higher for engineering technology, but it's also a little less common or popular, but both are great programs. So
yeah, and I would just add here, it's not a great way to backdoor into Purdue's engineering if you're thinking about, oh, I'll get admitted into engineering technology, but then I can just transfer to engineering. The plan of study is very different between the two. As Danik mentioned, one is very focused on practical skills, another one is more theory. So the first year curriculum is very, very different between the two. It's not really a good way to backdoor into Purdue's engineering, which kind of lead to one of student wants us to repeat how to best utilize the alternative options and the primary options. Danik, can you just explain a little more on that one and maybe give some recommendation?
Especially for those students who are truly interested in Purdue, there are good ways to have strategy when it comes to using those first choice majors, the second choice major. As I mentioned before, the most common mistake we see students is applying for more or less the same major for the first and second choice. But the two things I would recommend, engineering technology is also sometimes a common second choice. And again, as Eugen said, it's a great program, but for some students who want to start in that and then switch to engineering, that may be possible, but it probably will take you longer than 4 years to graduate. And again, it's not ideal for you. So a few common good options for the second choice. One being exploratory studies. As I mentioned, that's our program for undecided students. So if you're undecided, or you think you're interested in, but you're also interested in Purdue, exploratory studies is a great option because you can start as an exploratory studies student. You can start taking those same classes that engineering students are taking that first semester. And then if you do meet certain criteria and there's space available in the program, you can switch over into it. So that's a pretty good strategy. A lot of our students are successful if they do well once they get there to switch into engineering from exploratory studies after a couple of semesters. There may be some limitations in certain programs, so mechanical, aeronautical, and maybe a little more competitive. One thing I would advise, there's a few programs where it may not be possible for you to switch over into it, and that would be computer science. That program, you typically have to be in computer science when you start in the program in order to switch. The other option, Purdue, is those locations. So you can select first choice location, say West Lafayette, and second choice Indianapolis, or you can select first choice Indianapolis, second choice West Lafayette for the same program, because we're considering that. So that's another really good, especially if you're interested in a program that has the major at both locations, having first choice one location, second choice the second location. That's also a really good strategy for utilizing that alternate choice very wisely. All right, that was a good question. Let's see. Yes,
like
if you're a non-resident student, if you're a non-resident student, you'll likely be a non-resident all 4 years. Resident is reserved for students who reside in the state of Indiana, and they likely graduated from high school in the state of Indiana. And their family and parents live here as well. So it's not possible to transition. Another way to put it, if you move to the state of Indiana for college or university, you're going to be a non-resident student. So even our students who are 45 minutes from Purdue coming from Illinois, they are also a non-resident student because they do not reside in the state of Indiana.
I feel like we can combine those two. I have a student ask what IB courses are required or recommended for CS, and then another student follow up which APs are required for CS. Our general guidance is if you're interested in any STEM programs at Purdue, we recommend you to take advanced courses in math and science. This is very true for computer science as a competitive program. We're really looking for the rigor of your math science classes, as well as the grades that you receive from those courses. So for IB, we're definitely looking at if students are challenging themselves by taking IB HL math in analysis and approach. Are they taking maybe IB CS? If that's an option at their high school, are they taking IB physics or IB chemistry? This is similar with AP, a student high school offering AP Calculus BC. Like we want to see students are taking those most rigorous math courses or physics, chemistry, if they're applying to any STEM programs at Purdue. It really is putting a context of the high school. If the advanced courses are not offered at high school, we're not going to punish you for not taking, let's say, AP Calculus BC, because your high school only offer AP Calculus AB. It's really, we want to see students are challenging themselves by really bump up that rigorous of their curriculum and are doing well in those math and science classes.
I agree with that. The only thing I would add is we don't necessarily have any specific requirements. So we don't require Math HL to apply to our program, or we don't require,
AP.
IB physics, or we have no preference whether you're taking HL or SL. Certainly, if you're doing well at HL, that's going to make your application stick out. And that's something we're going to be looking for and considering. But we also, if you're taking HL and getting a 4 in IB rather than if you would have took SL, we would have rather you take SL and do better and have a stronger grade. So we want you to do well in whichever you choose to take. There's no set requirement or guidelines as there may be for some other programs outside the US or even within the US, but we take all of that into consideration. That's which AP is required for computer science. We don't require any APs, but again, like you, Jen, said, if you are able to take APs and do well in them, of course, that's going to make your application something we'd like to see.
I had a student earlier ask about research opportunities at Purdue. So I'm just going to quickly touch on that. We have, I would say more than 50% of students, maybe higher than that, does undergraduate research once they're getting here at Purdue. A lot of the program has that built into the curriculum. We also have an undergraduate research office here at Purdue, kind of matching students based on their research interest with faculty member or potentially research projects here on campus. So we're tier 1 research institutions. We had not of fundings. We're not a really cool labs at Purdue. I would say those opportunities are out there and just waiting for students to find them.
We completely agree. And I saw a question too. I don't know if it was answered in the chat. It was about acceptance rates. So
Yes.
for international students specifically, I don't know if that was addressed or not, but I would say, yeah. So overall, the acceptance rate is going to be about 50% overall. And then for international students specifically, it's about 30% overall across all majors. Certainly engineering and computer science are probably and professional flight are among our most competitive programs for admission. So the rates are a little bit lower for international. One thing I like to point out is that we are a public university, so the acceptance rate for our Indiana residents is much higher than our out of state or non-resident or international. So our non-resident and international numbers, acceptance rates are very comparable. But that's about 50% overall and the 30% international. Of course, for computer science, engineering, it's probably going to be more down in the 20. I don't know to have the exact number in front of me, but it's going to be probably between 10 and 25% for those programs, computer science and engineering specifically. How about this? How are the study abroad opportunities at Purdue? That's a great question. There's over 400 opportunities. We have partnerships all across the globe. Eugen put a link there in the chat, so you can check that out. But we have a wide variety of opportunities. It's very common for our students to do an entire semester abroad. A lot of our students do their study abroad over the summer, so they don't miss out on time away from Purdue. And there's even short-term study abroad that's maybe 2 weeks long or a month long. And a lot of our programs have that integrated with their curriculum. So there's a wide variety. So really, anything you're thinking about studying abroad, you're going to be able to find that, no problem, for you.
Question about recommend specifically for Purdue lovers. I would say if you truly think Purdue is your school, definitely utilize that alternative options on your applications, especially if your first choice is engineering. As Danik said, use that alternative options for either a program maybe outside College of Engineering, like exploratory studies, or utilize the second location, like the Purdue Indianapolis engineering program. If one of those 5 that you feel like you would be passionate about, let's see, computer science, computer engineering, electric engineering, motorsports engineering, what's the other 2? Biomedical engineering, there's one more I'm missing, but mechanical engineering.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, so utilize those direct admission at Indianapolis would definitely help increase your chance of admissions at Purdue. I feel like that will be my number one advice to students who really feel like Purdue is their dream school, is to utilize the alternative options on the application.
Is there summer programs for high schoolers? That's a tricky question. I typically say no, Purdue doesn't have any programs. We do and we don't. I would say if you're a US citizen, you're going to have no problem, and there may be some great programs. We don't issue any visas, and you can't study on a tourist visa in our summer programs because they are college level courses. So that would be my answer, is that Purdue and our summer programs are more designed for our local students and domestic students. So I have heard of some students coming to our high school programs, but they're not the traditional programs you're likely looking for or used to seeing. So you can definitely check out those programs. We do have an online option though. So if you want to do an online college course, we do have a summer college for high school students, both in person and online. But as I said, if you're international, need a visa, it's not possible for you to do those programs. That's correct. Yeah, HL is not required math or science for any of our programs at Purdue.
I have a student ask in private about predictive scores. I feel like that's worth mention to the crowd. We would love to see it. So if you have IB predictive scores, we want to see it. But I would say from a counselor point, we don't weight it as much as the actual grades that you have already received, let's see, for your IBDP1, it's nice to see, okay, what's the teacher thinks how the student gonna do during their senior year, but if the scores are not as high as you think you would get, I won't stress about it. I feel like we do pay more attention to the courses and grades you have completed till the point that you are applying to Purdue.
Looking at your question, your AP scores. No, I mean, for us on our side, for the admissions purposes, AP scores, there's not much difference. Again, AP is not required to apply to any of our programs. If you have taken AP or self-studied for the AP, you're welcome to submit those results. But the main thing that's going to be beneficial for AP scores, if you get a 3 or better on any AP exam, that's going to award you college level credit at Purdue and most universities in the US. So that's going to be the main thing. But again, it's not required. Biological and chemical engineering departments competitive in the US? Sure, yeah. So at Purdue, biological and chemical, our entire engineering department, you'll start in general engineering and you'll transition to biological or chemical. But yeah, both of those are competitive and great, valid majors. They're all encompassed in our College of Engineering, which is in the top 10 in the US. So, and it is possible, yeah, to switch between departments. So when you're changing majors at Purdue specifically, so for example, you maybe start in social studies, you want to switch to engineering. How that works, it's going to be different. Each major has their own criteria that they're going to be looking for. So for engineering, they may say you need to take a calculus class and get a B or better. You need to take physics and chemistry. And then once you take all those classes, you need to have at least a 3.2 GPA in all of those classes. Once you completed that, and then if there's space available, then they'll maybe allow you to officially change your major into that. Some of them, they may not allow you to switch because there's no space available in the program. So that's the case with our computer science program at Purdue. And there may be some majors, if the major that you're wanting to switch to is within your same department. So for example, in our School of Business, if you're in our accounting program, but you want to switch to finance, just talk to your advisor, they'll probably switch it for you. So depending on the change you want to make, it's going to depend on, and that's going to be different at each university in the United States and how that works. But that's a little bit how it works at Purdue. So it is very possible. It also depends when you change. So if you change your first year, you likely still should be on a 4-year plan of study. But if you switch maybe your second, third, fourth year, you may take you longer to graduate. What percentage of your what percentage of your undergraduate join the workforce in the US after graduation? I don't have a set percentage on that. I don't know. I know a lot of our students do stay and get internships and to fulfill their OPT, their optional practical training requirements for our international students. Our placement rates are very high from all of our programs, I believe, are around or above 90%. We do have several programs that have 100% job placement rate after graduation. So, but UGen did put some links there to some of the helpful data where you can go in and search by program for that. But as far as international students remaining, that I do not know.
You can apply for engineering and also for business. You can do that. I feel like if you have an interest in both engineering and business, just take a look at our integrated engineering business program at Purdue, which will offer you understanding of engineering. So you actually will take some first year engineering class, and later on we'll take business class. So it's a combination of two.
Yeah.
Sorry, we'll fix that.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation. Yeah, both the IBE, the Integrated Business Engineering program, is really, really good. So that's also a common second choice as alternate choice as well. That would be a wise one, another good option as an alternate choice.
Yeah. So if you're in the FYE program, you will get to pick basically a first choice engineering discipline and the second choice engineering discipline at the end of your first year. And I believe more than 95% of FYE students get their first choice major if they meet the minimum requirement
Yep.
of their first choice major. Like most of you will get the major you want. And I send the FYE information there, but I can also send it the transition process information there too.
These have been all great questions
I know.
and a really great crew here. So, but
Very active
if
audience.
there's- yeah, it's been good.
Well, I mean, we're very thankful that you came and spent the hour with us. This has been really great for, oh, there's another question. I don't know if you want to answer it, or we're over 5 minutes over, so it's
Um,
internships in the industry, are they beneficial for in the admission process to see those?
oh yeah, okay, sorry. Thanks for framing that. I was for the application process. I mean, yes, if you have it, we will see that on the application. It's common for students to submit that in the extracurricular activities section of their application. So, and that's also a great way to integrate that would be to answering the why Purdue or the why the major you want to study, because you may already have some experience in that field. So definitely highlight that. Certainly, it's not a requirement, and it's not expected. But if you do happen to have that, then of course, that'll be definitely considered.
What is a CS chemistry? ACS?
I was also wondering that too.
Society, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, at
Because
Purdue,
we have two.
yeah,
We do
at
have
Purdue we
one.
have two chemistry. So that one I would say, what advantages do students get if they choose that? That is a good question. Jen, do you know?
I feel like the way we review chemistry majors
Yeah, the
will
way
be
we
the same.
review, yeah, the way you review is the same. You can also switch once you're here. But I think the one may have either some accreditation or some
Extra
must be
things
some,
built into, yeah. So
yeah,
I
the
would say,
curriculum.
yeah, look at the plan of study just to find the fit for you. Will be my recommendation, but the way we review all the science majors will be very similar. It doesn't really matter which science major you're applying to. The criteria we're gonna look at, it's gonna be very similar.
thank you. So, again, thank you for your time. And there's a recording, which with your permission, I will stop right now.